Jimmy Carter grew up in the 1930s, which coincided with the period of the Great Depression. This was perhaps America's darkest economic hour. Many people were out of jobs. People saw their life savings disappear. People had difficulty getting food. But this had many ramifications that were adverse, certainly for the Carter family farm. Under the controls, since the demand for cotton dropped, they were ordered to destroy part of their cotton crop, which was something that turned Jimmy Carter's father into an opponent of the New Deal. But the administration of Franklin Roosevelt brought many good things to rural Georgia. Rural areas throughout the United States in the 1930s did not have electricity because it cost too much to run the lines out to the rural communities. So when Jimmy Carter was young, he did not have indoor plumbing, he did not have electricity, so they had to cut wood to create the heat. They had kerosene for their light. But under the rural electrification program pushed by President Franklin Roosevelt, electricity did come to the Carter farm, and this revolutionized their life. During the Depression, because of the great poverty, people had to look out for each other. And Jimmy Carter's mother was known as someone that would provide food to, they called them hobos at the time, who would come traveling through town. And the hobos even put a little secret code onto the Carter's mailbox saying, here's a home that it will be friendly to the homeless and people that do not have food. So one of the things that helped America get through that period was people looking after each other and trying to help each other out.
I would say one of the major changes that took place, at least in my life, I didn't live in Plains, I lived out on the farm about 2.5 miles from Plains, was the coming of electricity and the intrusion of the federal government into the affairs of the farmers under the Roosevelt's New Deal. The most important thing that happened in my early life was electricity on our farm. Before that, we just had oil lamps and so forth, and no running water in the house. And so coming of electricity was a transforming thing for me, for my family, and for my daddy, who became a leader in the so-called rural electrification program. He helped orchestrate the bringing of electricity to a lot of other farms as one of the leaders then. And so that was a major change. And then, of course, the other change was that before the late 1930s, most of the people made their own decisions. Farmers decided exactly how many acres of corn or peanuts they wanted to grow, how many hogs they had and so forth. But with the New Deal program, there was an imposition of federal rules on how many acres exactly each farmer could plant of cotton and peanuts and how many hogs they could grow even. So there was a regimentation that was new, but most farmers were willing to accept that for more stable crop prices and also for the coming of electricity.
I grew up during the Depression days when people didn't have anything much. We were poor, but we didn't know it because we had friends and we had everything we wanted in this community. That's what I thought as a child. I'm sure there was unemployment, but as a child, I had everything I wanted, and I think, but we were careful. We were careful with the money we spent. We didn't have a lot of money, and I think that time of feeling some responsibility for managing what I did and the money for my family and all caused me to be very careful, and I think it had an impact on the things that I did and the decisions that I made when I was, when Jim was president. I know when I was growing up, if somebody was sick or somebody had a hard time, if a house burned down, like in those times they did more than now because we didn't have the indoor electric heating. We didn't even have electricity at one point when I was very young. And I think that caring that I learned from people in my community made me realize how important it was to have empathy for those who were poor and disenfranchised, and I think that had a big impact on what I did when Jim was president too.
The families that lived on our farm had a free house that my daddy provided. They had a garden, behind their homes where they could grow vegetables, and they had a right to go into the woods and get wood for the fireplace and for cooking stoves, and they had a right to fish in the streams and to hunt squirrels and rabbits and raccoons and possums and so forth. So they had a much better life than other people who didn't have a stable employment. It seems like a deprivation now, looking back on those very low wages, but you have to remember that this was during the Great Depression, and there was about a 35% unemployment rate in the whole country. And we had thousands of people from the north that would move down to the south trying to get a job and trying to stay warm in the wintertime. So our house in Archery was right on the main highway between Savannah and, you might say, the west coast of Los Angeles. And it was US 280, and the main railroad went by there too. So every day we had hundreds of what we call hobos that went by. They were foremen and other very well-educated people who had lost their jobs in the north, and they were just looking for anything to do down south. So compared to those hobos that didn't have any place to live and no income, the folks that had a home down here that worked on the farm just for $1 a day were very, very well off.